like they say, it's supposed to favor the underdog. How about CJ Baxter on this one? There's no way. Actually, there is. He is that guy. 30, 20. Someone's coming for him. Nobody's going to get him. Touchdown, Edgewater.
He had his chance to walk away a winner, but Mr. Brady wanted to win twice, and guess what happens? You lose your wife.
And watch this. He slows down here just to make him miss as well. Gives him the stiffy of all stiffies.
And kill 7 seconds. But a flag's on the field. The ball's loose. And it's going back the other way. It was picked up and it's taken in by DJ Hardy. Game over. Northside calls it.
Live from Orlando, Florida, you're listening to The Sports Scene with Jesse Ough.
Oh, slapping Elmo and call me Big Bird. Yep, it's me, Jesse Ough. Welcome everyone to The Sports Scene on iHeartRadio, iHeartRadio Podcasts, and YouTube, presented by First Bet and Sports Fluent Media. We've got a great show for you. Our special guest is a fan favorite of the show. He is the resident big man and former NBA center and coach. Paul Mokeski will join me in actually just a sec here. There's no top 5 sports stories this week, unfortunately, because I want to get right into that Paul Mokeski interview where we actually do something kind of fun this week. We have him fill out an NBA playoff bracket. So we hope you enjoy that. By the way, no Max or Alvin this week. They'll be back with me next week. I'm unfortunately going to have to pass on the top 5 sports stories this week. I got so much prep I have to do for our ESPN games this weekend for baseball and softball. So it'll be just that little part that we recorded last week with Coach Paul Mokeski. Keep in mind, as we're recording this, we recorded last Friday. So some things obviously have played out since then, but still the bracket pretty much remains intact going through today. So we hope you enjoy our special here with Coach Paul Mokeski. Hey yo, welcome back to The Sports Scene, everyone. For our second segment, we are joined by our favorite big man of the show. He's a former Milwaukee Buck. He is a former head coach for not just the NBA, but for the D-League and then for international teams as well. He's a former commissioner in minor league basketball. He's our all-around basketball man, the big man himself, Coach Paul Mokeski, joins the show for Coach Mo's Corner for 3 segments today. Coach, I got you for 3 segments. How did I bag you for 3 whole segments this week? I'm a lucky guy.
Well, I got an email that, I get paid triple, so hey, I'm in.
Oh, wow. I don't know who did that, but that is not binding. That email, if it's not written out completely where it's my name is on the signature, sorry.
You know what? 0 so hey.
That is true. I will accept that. All right, Coach. So there's a lot going on in the NBA. So I want to jump right into some things. Obviously, the play-in tournament is happening right now. As we're recording this, as this releases, obviously, some things might be shaken up. But I wanted to take a chance to talk about the 4 play-in games. We're recording this on Friday at 2 o'clock. I want to talk about the play-in games that we've seen so far. By the way, Coach, guess where I am right now? In the country. Guess
Florida.
where I am? I am in Florida. But do you know what city? I am in Miami. You're correct. And as of tonight, there is a Miami play-in game for the 8th seed. So let's go ahead and talk about that Miami matchup against the Philadelphia 76ers. This one's going to be very interesting, Coach, because the 76ers won a nail-biter game So the 76ers won the nail-biter game against Miami for the first play-in game to be the 7th seed, 105-104. So they're now the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. Embiid had a quiet game until the 4th quarter when he exploded for those crucial points and an assist to Oubre Jr. for the go-ahead shot. But the win came despite early struggles by Embiid and Maxey, which is not good if you're going into the playoffs. You need both of those guys to be absolutely locked in. And they were shut down by, what was it? Miami's zone defense. Coach, can Miami's zone defense benefit them now as they go against the Chicago Bulls?
Yeah, here's the problem, though. No Jimmy Butler, right?
Yeah.
So
Jimmy Butler is out.
So, can Miami Yeah, so I mean that's their heart and soul, and that's he's the one that pulls them through tough games. So if Jimmy Butler was healthy and playing, I give them the leg up for sure. And they are playing at home, but with Jimmy Butler out, uh, that's that's going to be tough. And you know what though, their zone that bothered Philly, they can put that in effect now and throw a little wrench into Chicago, who actually has some chance to look at it and hopefully, because it's mind-boggling to me how his own defense is a college high school thing, and NBA teams can't figure the zone out. It's ridiculous, but it's true. I mean, Miami played all zone, almost all zone the whole game, and it affected Philly. And you know what? I think Miami wins that game if God, I can't remember the guy's name. The guy that came off and hit like 6 threes for
Kevin
Philly.
Love? Oh.
No, for Philly.
Oh, for Philly. Batum? Or Batum.
Yeah.
Batum.
Batum was the best player. Batum.
Yeah, him and Buddy Hield kept him in that game until Embiid took over in the fourth.
Yeah, but Batum played great defense. Batum was everywhere. Batum tipped the ball in that they missed. He did everything. Without Batum, they don't win. And that's why in the NBA, in playoff series, the stars usually do what the stars do, but the role players are the ones that win games. And Batum won that game for them.
Yeah. So obviously the 76ers are going on to face the Knicks now in the first round of the playoffs, and the Heat are going to play Chicago tonight as we're recording this for the 8th seed here in Miami. And now how Chicago got here, Coach, was, they ended up taking it to the Atlanta Hawks. And unfortunately, the Atlanta Hawks just should be better, but they're not, Coach. Like, I don't know. Every single year, I think Atlanta is going to be better. Kobe White exploded for a career-high 42 points to lead the Chicago Bulls to a 131-116 victory over the Atlanta Hawks. DeJounte Murray led Atlanta with 30 points, but it really wasn't enough to overcome White, who was really hot shooting this night. 15 for 21 and had a well-rounded performance as well. I think he had 9 rebounds, 6 assists. And one thing I really, really, really like about this Chicago Bulls team a couple of years back is they acquired Nikola Vukovic from the Orlando Magic, and DeMar DeRozan came in, and they also chipped in with strong offensive games as well for Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta seems like they should be better. Maybe they made a big run a couple of years ago and ended up losing to my Milwaukee Bucks, I think, in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Milwaukee went on to win it all that year. So, but they haven't done anything since. They haven't really tweaked their lineup much. They've kind of been around. They're on the bottom half of the East, and same with the Bulls, who've been riddled with injury after injury, and they're muddling around at the bottom half of the East too. So in reality, who really cares, right? Because either one is going to get at the best a gentleman sweep against Boston. So really, who cares, really? I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. But so the thing is, like, on your way to a championship, I was listening to Drew Holiday to talk to Draymond Green about this. And they were saying, honestly, to win a championship, a whole lot of luck has to go into this. And I think now that Jimmy Butler is hurt, he's out with that MCL injury. That could be the luck that the Celtics need, because remember, last year, Miami knocked off the Celtics, who were, again, a number 1 seed. And the Celtics have just not been able to get through Miami the last 4 years, right? Like, that has been the bane of their existence. Jimmy Buckets has been the bane of their existence. And without Jimmy Butler, it's really looking bleak for Miami. But, like we were saying, there's a whole lot of luck that needs to go into making a championship run, right?
Yeah, and I mean, best ability in NBA is availability. And without Jimmy Buckets, they don't have a really. And, it's not like he turned an ankle. He hurt his MCL or whatever in his knee. And that, he played through that game, which might have actually hurt him more. I'm not so sure. So, he's not, they're going to reevaluate him in 2 weeks. Well, guess what? The season's probably over in 2 weeks. So don't, go reevaluate yourself for off-season training, I guess. And it's too bad because, man, it looked like Miami was kind of coming in their own, and guys were playing up to their potential, and they had that zone defense, which would have been interesting against the Celtics. So it's just too bad. But you're right. It's Giannis is out for Milwaukee. Other players are out for their players. Kawhi's probably out for the
Embiid
Clippers
is
for a little
hurt.
while.
Embiid is still playing hurt.
He didn't look. He was grabbing his knee the whole game. He was grabbing his knee and looking at the bench during free throws. That's concerning, and he's still a 70% Embiid is better than most bigs in the NBA anyway, except for Joker and the guys. But he was grabbing his knee. I know. I've had 5 knee surgeries and a replacement. And when you're grabbing your knee at a free throw line, that means it's not right.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, let's get on to our Western Conference now for these play-in games. So the Lakers beat the Pelicans 110-106, securing their playoff berth. They will now be the 7 seed. LeBron James had 23 points, 9 assists, 9 rebounds, and he looked like, vintage LeBron. He looks like he's 31 out there, not 39. Anthony Davis, what a great teammate to have for LeBron. 20 points and 15 rebounds. They both led the way. And the Lakers right now, Coach, are on a hot streak. They've won 12 of their last 15 games. Zion Williamson, he did have a huge game for the Pelicans with 40 and 11, but he left the game with a leg injury in the final minutes with the score tied. So his status for this next game is pretty uncertain. It looks like he might not play.
Yeah, he's not.
What do you think?
Yeah, he's not playing. Talk about injuries, right? And the Lakers were up by 18 in the second half. And then New Orleans came roaring back, a lot of it on Zion's back. And he was unstoppable. He was going to the basket. You couldn't stop him. And they had tied up the game. I think they would have won that game. And then Zion hurts his hamstring, I think. And then you could see the frustration on his face, and he threw down the towel. And he knew it's not right. And he's not going to play, tonight. So, New Orleans without Zion is, pretty much, a done deal.
And then you have, unfortunately, which I thought we would get into more, which is why I saved it for last. The Sacramento Kings beat the Golden State Warriors 118-94 in the play-in tournament, eliminating the Warriors from the playoffs. I found this win a little bit significant for a couple of reasons. The first one being that the Kings avenged their playoff loss last year. They lost Game 7 last year, so the win kind of feels like redemption for them. And it's also more of a stab in the heart for the Warriors because it's like a one-and-done game last year. The Warriors go up to Sacramento for that Game 7. Steph pops off for 50, and the Warriors end up winning. But it could also be, now after this loss, the possible end of a dynasty, Coach. The Warriors, who have won 4 championships in the last 8 years, really played poorly, and you never know what's going to happen with their star players. Now, obviously, Steph and Draymond are locked up, but the one thing everyone's been talking about is Klay Thompson. What is Klay Thompson going to do? And he keeps saying, you guys, wait, July 1st is the day where I actually will have to, test free agency and everything. So until then, I'm going to reflect on the season and figure out how I can get better. But the Kings' playoff hopes are still alive. They are still in the running for that final playoff spot, the 8 seed in the Western Conference. They play with New Orleans tonight as we're recording this. Key players for the Kings in that last game, Keegan Murray exploded for 32 points. De'Aaron Fox, just a sniper as ever, 24 points for him. Klay Thompson had a rough night for the Warriors, went 0 of 10 from the field, Coach. He missed every single shot he took, ended up with 0 points in over 29 minutes.
Yeah, so we talk about role players, right? And Sacramento had one of their role players up huge again with 30-plus points. And, that's big. And Sacramento, was the darling last year. They were in first place for most of the season. And, and the Warriors knocked them off, in a tough 7-game series. But, I think Sacramento is going to be a surprise in the West, and they're going to be a tough out for all the rest of the teams. But as far as the Warriors are concerned, Klay Thompson, obviously, what are we going to do with him? Chris Paul, what happened? Where did he go? He was hardly in the game. I mean, that was your last year, right? You got Chris Paul, didn't get a big because you have no size. You're like a 6'8" and under team. which you can't win in the NBA. Sorry. And then Chris Paul, your big addition, is a no show. Clay was 0 for 10, but Chris Paul was non-existent also. And then Wiggins was the Wiggins that's been all year up and down. And they have some nice young players in Kuminga and the rookie guard, Poda Zakolicki, whatever his name is. So they have some young talent. They're going to have – you got to make a move, man. I'm sorry. Draymond Green always gets suspended. Klay Thompson is up and down, wants a big salary. Chris Paul is non-existent. You got to make some moves. And, Chris Paul, they can just kind of not re-sign him and get him off the books, which helps. That's like $30 million, whatever it is.
$31 million.
In my opinion, if I was Klay, I'd be looking for another spot. Whether it's Dallas or Oklahoma City or somewhere that can make a run at some championships, and I can be a sharpshooter off the bench. That's where I'm looking. But you know what? The reality is, you're going to take less money then. You ain't getting a max. You can't. No one's going to give you a max deal. Sorry, unless the Golden State Warriors tie their hands again and give it to them because of sentiment. But letting Chris Paul go, you got to fit. In my opinion, I'm trying to deal Draymond and see if I can get something for him. He's like $30 million on the books. He's always gets suspended. Draymond told you what he is. Draymond's always going to be Draymond. That's what he said. So he's going to be suspended again.
Yeah.
And you saw when he got kicked out of the game here a couple weeks ago, Steph Curry was crying on the court. That's how he reacted. So you know what? It's not going to get better. He is what he is, guys. So see if you can get something for him and then replace Chris Paul with a nice $25 million free agent that's out there. And then get a freaking big, please. Gold State, get a big man. Get a 7-foot, 270. I don't care who it is that can battle with the Joker or forget about it. Because how many offensive rebounds did Sacramento have last game? They were like men batting the ball around against kids. And,
we need a big, big.
Yeah, Steph Curry is at the top, still at the top of his game, amazingly. You have some pieces there, Kuminga and some young players. You need a real big, a Brook Lopez type, whoever that is, I don't care. Luke Longley guy. That's how they won before. Go get somebody like that and then replace Chris Paul's salary and maybe Klay Thompson. Unless Klay Thompson comes down and signs for half of what he's asking for, you let him go and then you sign somebody else in that spot and make another run at it. But, they need to fix their roster.
One thing I've been really hearing, though, is that the Orlando Magic might actually make a run at Klay because they have all these good young pieces, but one thing that they're missing is shooting from the outside. So maybe the Orlando go in and give Klay a boatload of money that he actually wants because they're only paying young guys right now. Jalen Suggs and Paolo Banchero are making very much below the average salary in the NBA. So that could always be an option for Klay Thompson. If the Warriors were to re-sign Klay Thompson, it couldn't be for $40 million. It would have to be for $20 million a year. So that's $20 million off the books right now as it is. If you let Chris Paul walk, essentially, because he's got that out clause, you can let him walk, and then you're saving another $31 million. So that's already $50 million off of the books right now. And one thing I can guarantee you, Coach, is Joe Lacob is not happy about this season for multiple reasons. If you are $144 million into the luxury tax and not even making the playoffs, he is going to make them come down a boatload. So you re-sign Klay for half the amount, you get Chris Paul out of there, and then what you have to do, get rid of Wiggins. Wiggins, he was not just bad, he stunk up the joint in that play-in tournament.
And he's got off-court problems. I don't know what they are. He was personally left the team, whatever that is. Here's the key for what Orlando is going to do. What happens in the next couple weeks? So if Orlando makes a run in the playoffs and then they figure, well, we can get a Klay Thompson and he can get us over the hump with the young players we have, then they'll do it. If they get beaten the first round by Cleveland, that could happen, might happen, probably will happen. Then they're going to, well, getting Klay Thompson is not going to help us get over the hump. We got to think a different way. So,
yeah. Well, we got a lot of games to look forward to. Coach, we are going to come back and you and I are going to do something kind of fun here that we've never done on the sports scene before. So, after these messages, Coach Mo and I will be back for something that you don't want to miss. Hey yo, welcome back to the sports scene, everyone. We're still rocking Coach Mo's Corner, Jesse Ough, alongside the big man himself, Coach Paul Mokeski, live in Las Vegas. I'm coming to you live from Miami, Florida. Coach, I hope it's a little bit warmer there. It's been pretty cold, around the country so far. I'm dealing with, 89-degree days, so life could be a lot worse. I hope it's been warmer and you've been able to get out to the Mokeski Beach Club. But hey, Coach, I wanted to do something fun for our fans out there of the show and for fans of your show as well, who can log on to this now on YouTube. We're on Chilltown Hoops for the video portion. This is not an audio portion you can obviously do the audio portion of this if you wanted to on iHeart or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, but it's more fun if you watch this part. So, Coach, we are going to do a bracket for the NBA playoffs together, all right? So, we're getting ready. We're going to start off with the East, Coach, because the Eastern Conference seems a little more straightforward, I think, than the Western Conference. So, with the 1 seed to start things off, you have the Celtics against the to-be-determined play-in right now. It's the winner of the Chicago Bulls and the Miami Heat. I'm assuming, let's see, the most dominant team in the league facing either the Heat without Jimmy Butler because he's got an MCL problem, or the Bulls potentially without Alex Caruso, who also had a problem. All right, so I'm thinking this should be brief. Are you picking Boston?
Yeah, obviously, yes.
We're picking Boston. Bang.
Probably a sweep, or at the very minimal, if Miami Heat gets through and they throw the zone at them and they got to figure out maybe a gentleman's sweep at 5 games.
5 games. So you're picking Celtics in 5.
If it's not 4, it's 4 or 5.
Yeah, I'm saying Celtics in 4 unless the underdogs take a game while the Celtics are playing with their food, although I think it's a merciful and quick, painless ending for whatever the 8th seed is. So we're going with the Celtics there. All right, Coach. Now, I want to talk about the number 2 seed, the New York Knicks versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Embiid showed in the playoff game against Miami that while he's not at full strength, he can still both hurt the Sixers at times, but he can hurt other teams at times. And now, if you're the New York Knicks, I don't know. There's a small sample size of OG Anunoby minutes, but that's seen them crush teams so far this year. More notably, even in the larger sample of minutes with virtually any combinations of Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, or Isaiah Hartenstein, they've run teams off the floor. New York is plus 15.2 per 100, Coach, when those 4 play together, and that's thanks to Tom Thibodeau. So he's had one great season. He's a great defensive mind. I might have to take the New York Knicks here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it would be different if I saw Joel Embiid acting differently in the play-in game, but he was grabbing his knee constantly. He's not 100%. He's going to give it his all. He's going to be dangerous, but in the long run, physicality of New York, they have the big bodies to be able to bang with him and make him, physically bother him. And then, Bogdanovic and Alex Burks are great additions. It does kind of bother me, the Knicks making a run at this whole thing because Randall is out. Does he come back from his shoulder surgery, or is he done? I think he's done. But I still think the Knicks in a longer series, maybe 6, I think the Knicks beat Philly with a bumped up, limping Joel Embiid.
Okay, so we are picking the Knicks beating the 76ers. How many games you got? I'm going Knicks in 6.
I agree. Yeah, I think
sounds good.
I think the Knicks will I think Philly will get worn down. I think they'll get a game or 2 early, and then they'll wear it down, and physically they'll kind of deteriorate. So I think 6 is a good number.
Okay, now we got the number 3 seed Milwaukee Bucks versus the number 6 seed Indiana Pacers. Coach, you could literally tell me anything about how this series would end, and it honestly wouldn't surprise me. My danger radar immediately set off because the Bucks were beaten 4 times by Indiana in the regular season, including in the in-season tournament semifinal in Vegas, which is one of the conditions to look for when scouting potential first-round upsets. And also, Giannis is likely to miss some time at the start of the series. So my numbers say the advantage tilts towards Indy in the non-Giannis games, exposing the rottenness Bucks, their second unit due to age and cap constraints. However, all 5 meetings happened before the Bucks changed coaches. So that could be something. What do you think?
Well, Giannis is out for probably the first 1 or 2 games for sure. That was a freaky that scares me. Non-contact around the Achilles tendon. That
calf injury.
Yeah, but it's it looks. Thank goodness it wasn't Achilles, but it's the next worst thing. It's connected to it, so that's very. Now the Bucks have the roster, have the talent, have the skill to beat Indiana without him, no question. However, what bothers me is the way they have not gelled. They haven't figured it out. Doc Rivers is catching all kinds of heat for not having a better record, than he has right now. I think Middleton is fairly healthy. He's coming through, but my heart is with Milwaukee. But when I look at, and you know what, the in season, early season, that was like 5 months ago. These are completely different teams. I don't even count that. But with Halliburton, they picked up Siakam. That's a huge pickup. They picked up Buddy Hield. So they have some scoring ability there. They were always strong defensively. My heart is with Giannis coming back, playing in game 3 and them winning in maybe 6 or 7. However, my mind says they're not there. Dame Lillard has not been happy all season for whatever reason. I think he has some off-court issues. Their bench is suspect, and they're up and down. They play really good at home. They don't play very good on the road. If I'm being like an analyst without 7 years of playing for the Bucks and a little green blood in my system, I'm going to pick Indiana in 7.
Indiana in 7. Okay. We're choosing
Maybe
the Pacers.
6.
This is in 6. Okay.
Yeah,
I think if Giannis comes back and plays at some point, I think the Bucks have a chance of hanging on. Halliburton also doesn't really quite seem all the way back from being the player he was back in December. And I think the trade of Buddy Hield left an open sore at shooting guard. So those are kind of my reservations.
So I'm changing. I'm going Bucks. Forget it. I'm going Bucks, damn it.
All right, there we go, Coach. We're going Bucks in 7 if Giannis comes back.
Yes.
All right, cool. Perfect. You know what? Sometimes we can switch it up. All right, now we're going with the number 4 Cleveland Cavaliers and the number 5 Orlando Magic. This is another series in which the health of a star is a major factor, as Donovan Mitchell's knee is sore, and that's kind of looms over this one. He wasn't himself for most of the second half of the season, but did come back and scored 29 and 33 points in 2 games last week. It's a high-pressure series for the Cavs, given the questions hanging on Mitchell's future and the roster just in general. Cleveland leaned into a 3-point heavy style built around Mitchell and floor spacing during Evan Mobley's absence, but flamed out late, going 12 for 17 after the All-Star break while dealing with Mitchell's injuries and trying to reintegrate Mobley. So what do you think, Coach?
It's really close series. We've talked about Cleveland for a couple of years now, how young they are. They're long, athletic. They have one of the best starting 5s. If Mitchell, Garland, Allen, Mobley, you put LeVert or Strus in there, Okora's there. But then Orlando has Banchero, who's doing great. They're really solid. But when I look at the Cleveland Cavs, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, almost 8 guys averaging double figures now, and they're so they've shored up. There was Strus. They shored up their shooting. So in this close matchup, I'm picking the home team, the team that has home court, and that's Cleveland.
Cleveland, how many games, Coach?
7.
7.
Yeah. I think they're going to go back and forth. I think Orlando plays well at home. They're going to win the games, and they're going to go back and forth. And the home court, like I said, in a close matchup with teams that really haven't been there in a while, right? Orlando and Cavs haven't been there in a long time, so really home court is going to pay off more than it usually does. So the team, I think home court in Game 7, Cavs pull it out.
Yeah. Okay. Orlando, I think, desperately needs some perimeter players to make some shots and open up the paint. So Jalen Suggs and Gary Harris better get it going. Also, one thing to note about this series, Coach, don't expect a lot of scoring. Mitchell's going to have his hands full with the Suggs defense, and Banchero has to deal with the Cavs Mobley. So Orlando is going to be searching for floor spacing all series, and the Cavs likely will too, depending on who plays. So my question is like, okay, which coach goes for offense guys first? So I think Cavs in 6, and I'm going to go with your home team as well, Coach. All right, now that we've chosen that, let's get into our Eastern Conference semifinals. All right, so let's start off with the Knicks and the Bucks. Why don't we? Because this, on paper, would shape up to be a good series. I'm not sure if that's going to play out really in reality, but the Bucks did win 3 of 5 games between the teams in the regular season, but 4 of those happened before New Year's Day, and New York won the most recent meeting with intact rosters on both sides. So now we're either looking at Giannis coming back from injury, or we're looking at, a team without Julius Randle. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think, New York plays more of a slow-down half-court game. Brunson is a handful. He's almost impossible to guard. And as we know, the Bucks guards aren't very good defensively anyway. But even with Brunson going off, if the Bucks can get past the Pacers, and then Giannis gets healthier, not re-injured, then I give the edge.
Not.
But a tough physical series, So if I'm picking the Bucks to get past Indiana, I'm picking them to get past the Knicks also without Randall.
Okay. We're choosing the Bucks going to the Eastern Conference semifinals. I was going to say Knicks in 6 because based on the bigger picture, this is a call on what the Knicks built during the second half of the season. Remember, they are a whole greater than the sum unit that has really stampeded the league when intact. And the Bucks have the best player in the league, in my opinion, in Giannis, besides, the Joker. And the Knicks' lack of perimeter size is a bit worrisome, but I still like New York coach. Tom Thibodeau knows how to scheme up teams on defense. It's my thought.
Yeah, and I think that they will give my hope and my thought process is by this time, this is about a month from now, right? So I think Giannis is now healthy and at full speed, and he's a handful no matter what you do on defense. So that's where I give the edge. If I'm getting the Bucks past Indiana, which is a tough call for me, I'm getting them past the Knicks also.
Okay.
Maybe in 6.
In 6, okay. So you got the Bucks. All right, Coach. Then we got the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So Cleveland's best game of the second half of the season came on March 5th when the Cavs rallied from a 22-point fourth quarter deficit with 9 minutes left to beat Boston 105-104 without Donovan Mitchell. Could be something to look at here, Coach. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how these comebacks are happening in the NBA now. They never used to. If you were up by 15 or 18 in the fourth quarter in the NBA back in the day, you won the game. You very rarely, if ever, lost a game like that. Now it happens all the time. It's crazy. But barring any major injury, Boston is too strong, too deep, too talented. Tatum and Brown, Porzingis great addition, and then Holiday defensively, who can you can put him on Garland or Mitchell. That's a good defensive matchup for Boston. So, I have Boston in a game in a series like that, probably in 6 also.
Okay. I
Maybe
think
5.
the Cavs, I don't think the Cavs have enough spacing against Boston unless they play smaller. But they also lost one of their best alternate options to the Allen Mobley front court with Dean Wade's knee sprain. And he's a stretch 4 who torched Boston in that comeback win, but he missed the final 19 games of the regular season. They don't know when he's coming back. I'm picking the Celtics in 5, Coach. So you and I are both picking the Celtics. All right, let's look at that Eastern Conference Finals matchup. Obviously, the number 1 Boston Celtics against, wildly, your number 3 Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, Tatum and Brown have to get it done this year if it's any year for them. If they can't get it done this year, then Boston's going to have to look in the mirror real hard after this playoffs.
And I think the addition of Porzingis and then them having Holiday now on their squad, I think that puts them over the hump, both on the floor and emotionally. I agree. Tatum and Brown need to perform now and get to the finals. They must get to the finals this year. They feel it. They know it. So I give the edge slightly to Boston again with the home team winning Game 7.
Okay. So Boston in 7. I would also say the Celtics in 7. I know the Tatum era Celtics have struggled in some of these moments before, but they've been the best team all year by a wide margin. Drew Holiday's one guy who hasn't won Defensive Player of the Year, but honestly could have in many other years if they hadn't just given it to Rudy Gobert every year. And with the Marcus Smart winning it last year, I honestly think that'll pave the way for a few more guards to start winning it. And also, if you ask any, playmaker in the league, who do you hate going against? Who do you hate guarding you? They all always say Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday has been a first team all defensive guy for the last 5 years. He's fantastic on defense.
And Holiday has won a championship. He's been there. And if Tatum and Brown and those guys will listen to him, he can explain how to get there and what we need to do to get to the championship series. And I think they will listen because they haven't been there. So, he has a ring. He's their point guard. He's their best, great defender. He's a good scorer. He's a distributor. So, I think that leadership and that experience, and also the experience of Tatum and Brown not making it, but they have been there, so they know what it's like not to make it. They don't want to do that again. So that's how I give them the edge. And you know what? All this, Jess, is weighing on if Giannis is healthy or not, or semi-healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's find out what the Western Conference needs to do to get to that finals appearance next here on the Sports Scene. Hey yo, welcome back to the Sports Scene for our final segment. I'm Jesse Ough, that's Coach Paul Mokeski, former NBA player and coach, and we are doing a mock bracket for the NBA playoffs. So, Coach, we're over in the Western Conference now. Let's start off with that number 1 matchup that you see up there at the top. We got the number 1 team, the Oklahoma City Thunder, facing either the Sacramento Kings or the New Orleans Pelicans, whoever comes out with the 8 seed tonight. I'm not sure these will be totally comfortable games for the Thunder, even if they play the Pelicans without Williamson. Because New Orleans has waves the defenders to throw at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Brandon Ingram has always played better when he's not sharing the court with Williamson. And Sacramento, meanwhile, has the ability to physically mash OKC with Sabonis and won 2 of 4 regular season meetings with the teams. What do you think, Coach?
Yeah, and I think Sacramento had a great year last year. They came up short. OKC, even though they're getting more mature, they're still very, very young. And to your point, Jesse, there is not one first round series in the West that's comfortable. Not one. I don't care if you're the 1 against the 8, 2 against. Not one of those teams is dominant, unlike the East. So this could be a toss-up series because Sacramento has been there before. but I kind of think that OKC is going to have a breakthrough year. Holmgren playing in the big spot as a stretch five, what they didn't have last year because he was injured. I think that gets them over the top. I think Sacramento's going to beat New Orleans without Zion. I think Sacramento's an all-around better team, but I think it's going to be a back-and-forth series. Sacramento is very, very, very good at home, and it's very loud there. So I can have OKC 7 on that one.
Okay, you got OKC going 7 games. I got OKC in 6. If it's against the Kings, I have them going in 5 against the Pelicans if Williamson misses significant time. Okay, Coach. Now the number 2 seed, the Denver Nuggets versus the number 7 Los Angeles Lakers. My basic rule of thumb is that teams without home court advantage in the first round are pretty much toast unless they split the season series, right? But the Lakers lost to Denver 3 games to none this year. So they haven't won a single game against Denver. Here's my other rule of thumb, and it's probably my more compelling reason to pick against Los Angeles. Even when Anthony Davis and LeBron James were on the court together, the Lakers weren't that good. They finished the season with a plus 0.6 scoring margin, the worst of any of the 8 teams with a winning record this season. And even with their dynamic duo on the floor, they were only plus 3.4 points per 100 possessions. That's the worst number on the board from a playoff team with its 2 best players, except for, guess who? New Orleans, who is vying for that 8 seed. What do you think? Can you hear me, Coach? You got me, Coach? Can you hear me?
I got lost you with the connection.
Sorry, yeah, my internet went really wild here for a second. Can you hear me now, though?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What was the last thing you heard me say?
We were talking about Nuggets Lakers, and even though Lakers, my dynamic duo has played well, blah blah blah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, my internet's being real screwy right now. One sec. Okay, now I know you can see me. Okay.
We were talking
so
Lakers, Denver.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, who do you got?
I like the way the Lakers have been playing. They're a lot deeper than they have been in the past. Denver is not as good as they have been. They were not deep last year, but they were better. They're not deep this year. They're not as good. They're starting 5 with Murray, Porter Jr., Gordon, Joker, and Caldwell Pope or someone is very strong. But now Reggie Jackson and Brown are the guys coming off the bench you're going to expect big minutes from. So I like the Lakers' chances, but in the long run, I think Denver is used to playing 5 guys. They're used to playing all the time, and they've beaten the Lakers. There is a little grudge match here going on. You know how the Denver Nuggets waved bye-bye to the Lakers last year, so there's a little extra incentive there. AD has been playing out of his mind, and he's played in over 60 games, I think, this year. So, I like the way they're playing. Denver is not as good as they were last year, I don't think. They're not a very deep team, but they had a couple nice role players off the bench last year who aren't there this year. Denver just seems to kind of chill and go through their motion, and, obviously they're defending champs. The Lakers seem to have to play so hard and so good to get wins that I think it's going to be a tight series. I think there's a little chip on the Lakers' shoulder, of Denver kind of waving goodbye to them last year. So I think it's going to be a good competitive series, but I have Denver somehow, some way, only with 5 main players pulling this out in 7 at home in Denver.
Okay, I got Denver in 5. Just because, I like rooting against the Lakers.
I think it's going to be longer series. I think the Lakers have more depth, and a lot of it's going to depend with the Lakers on D'Angelo Russell. Also, he's been playing relatively well, but he's also been known to get in a slump. If he goes in a slump, it could be 5. But if he plays relatively good basketball, I think it's going to go all the way to 7 in altitude in Denver.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Coach, let's look at that 3-6 matchup, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the number 6 Suns. One of my best predictions, or so I thought, was that Minnesota would win a playoff series for the first time since 2004. And then this happens. The Wolves drew perhaps the worst possible opponent in Phoenix, a team that beat them soundly 3 times in the regular season. What you think?
Well, I think, Chris Finch, very good friend of mine, coaching partner, very good mind. Minnesota has figured out how to play with their 2 bigs. They've been banged up a little bit during the season. I think they figured it out. Anthony Edwards is a superstar. Phoenix has what looks like a roster that could win a championship, but they haven't come through. I don't know what the problem is there. Kind of like I don't know what's wrong with the Milwaukee Bucks, but I have the same feeling about the Phoenix Suns. And I think in the long run, in a long series, I think Minnesota pulls it out in 6 or 7.
Okay, so you think Minnesota.
And you think Phoenix, right?
I think Phoenix, yeah. I say Phoenix in 6, but that's okay. We got to keep it moving. But
I don't know what's wrong with B. I don't know, the spectacular threesome that they had. No one can stop them. It sounds familiar, just like Brooklyn Nets had years ago, with Harden and KD and Kyrie, and that never worked. This hasn't worked either for whatever reason. It's strange because Phoenix they have a big center who's serviceable. They have guards that can shoot. They should be better, but they're not for some reason. So, my heart's in it with Chris Finch in Minnesota.
Okay, I'll trust you on that one, Coach. So, one of the greatest unknowns on some level is the number 4, number 5 matchup, the Clippers against the Dallas Mavericks. And not just because Leonard's uncertain status. These teams haven't played since December 20th, which is, 4 months ago. And even that game was missing both Paul George and Kyrie Irving. The Clippers won 2 of 3 in the regular season. Both teams have changed dramatically since their opening day. The Clippers added James Harden, moved Russell Westbrook to the bench, and upgraded Amir Coffey to a rotation spot, while Dallas traded for Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington and retooled around them. And both teams, Coach, have had awesome stretches, a 16-2 run by Dallas before shutting its players down for the year, a 32-9 half-season eruption from the Clippers, and have impressive numbers with their stars on the court. So what do you make of this series?
Well, I think also Dallas added, not only have added PJ Washington Gafford, they added Derek Lively the second, who's a 7'1" athletic, shot-blocking big that can catch and finish dunks, which is what Luka wants, right? He needs that to be effective. I think they just made additions to their roster where they needed them. They needed bigs that could perform because last year they were dependent on Kleber and Powell as their bigs. And now those guys hardly even play because of Gafford, PJ Washington, and Derek Lively. So I think they've made some great additions that in the right spots at the right time. It looks like Kyrie and Luka have figured out a way to play together. They kind of have a joy back in it. And, the Clippers, who are one of the most talented, if not the most talented and deepest and greatest teams ever, cannot get it all together for whatever reason. And, Kawhi is banged up again, but, you got Harden, you got Paul George, you got Zubac, you got Norman Powell, who's playing great, Westbrook, Plumlee off the bench, Terrence. I mean, look at that roster, but they've never really got it all together. And, my gut tells me this year is Dallas Mavericks year. So I have them maybe in 6.
Yeah, I got the Mavs in 7. I think now that Doncic has Irving as his wingman, even if the second line guys aren't as good, I still like Dallas's chances. That's especially true when the alternate is betting on Leonard to stay healthy through a postseason series. So I expect this series to absolutely be a tremendous theater performance. I'm getting all the popcorn. If Leonard is healthy, the Clippers are a real threat to make the conference finals. But if forced to choose, I trust Dallas a little bit more like you, Coach. So we're going Mavs in 7. All right.
Kawhi has to get himself ready for the Olympics, right? He just got picked for the Olympic team, so he's got to get healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Coach, we got a 1-5 matchup now in the conference semifinals for the West between OKC and the Dallas Mavericks. Who you got?
That's sarcasm, by the way.
I know. I can understand sarcasm. A lot of people out there cannot. But that one I got. Okay, OKC, number 1, number 5, Dallas Mavericks. Who you got?
I'm going. I think it's Dallas's year. I think
you're running with the Mavericks. Okay.
Yeah, I think I've really they haven't had bigs that can perform. Kyrie and Luka hadn't figured it out. Porter Jr. Those guys. I think. Hardaway Jr. I think they figured it out, and I think they're going to make a nice run. And OKC, I think their youth and their immaturity a little bit is going to catch up with them here. And I have Dallas beating OKC in an upset.
Dallas over OKC in an upset? Okay, I'm also going to go with you there, Coach. I like a Dallas over OKC upset in the second round. I can't forecast injuries, but if anyone from OKC even possibly goes down or even gets a little bit hurt, they have no shot. So I'm just thinking longevity and also playoff experience of now both Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. I think that shows more true colors than what OKC has, which is no playoff experience. So they'll get out of the first round just based on talent. Second round is where, if you've been there before, you know what the scenario's like, you know what the pressure is like of the situation. The real guys rise to the challenge. Kyrie Irving has already won an MVP or NBA Finals. So I think that the Mavericks take care of the Thunder there. Okay, number 2, Nuggets versus the number 3 Timberwolves.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait. Here's your point, too. This is what I like to say, right? Okay, if I'm going into a playoff series and I'm looking at teams, and I have to say, okay, what if one of their top 2 players gets hurt? Can they still win? Dallas is one of those teams that absolutely, if Luka gets hurt, Kyrie can carry him. If Kyrie gets hurt, Luka can carry him. So that's one of the things you have to look at in these long 7-game series. What if one of your top players gets hurt? Can you still win? And Dallas can. Yes, they can.
Coach, I'm assuming you got the Nuggets over the Timberwolves just because Jokic is the best player in the league right now, and Jamal Murray somehow turns into like the second coming of Michael Jordan in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I want to think that, Minnesota can figure out a zone defense and with their bigs and their bodies and mug it up a little bit and, cause problems. But, there's no getting around it that Denver with Luka and Murray, they figure it out. You can't really play zone against them because Luka's too good. So I have Denver in 6 probably.
Okay. I got Denver in probably 5. I'll do Nuggets in 5 because I just think the Timberwolves will crumble under the pressure. All right, Coach, you think it's the Mavericks' year, but I know you're not picking against the best player in the league in Nikola Jokic, and I think the Nuggets win in the Western Conference Finals. What do you think?
I don't know.
What?
I'm telling you what I said a little while ago. It could be Mavericks' season. If they get past the Clippers, I think they beat OKC, and they cause problems for Denver also with Kyrie and Luka. They can't guard them, and now Dallas has the bigs. They have 3 legitimate bigs, and 4 and 5 with Kleber and Powell backing them up. That could really throw a wrench into the Joker's kind of bag of tricks. So I'm not so sure about this one, Jesse. I think it's going to be tighter than you think, and I think the Mavericks have 30-40% chance of winning that series.
Okay, 30 to 40%. So you're going with the Nuggets because based on your math, they have a 60 to 70% of winning that series. So you're obviously going with the Nuggets. Now, in our finals matchup, Coach, the Nuggets and the Celtics, who do you got?
I'm going with Boston. They finally make
What?
it. They finally get a chance, and they beat the last year's champions, the Denver Nuggets, because they're not as good as last year. Denver is not as good as they were last year. They're not as deep, and they weren't even deep last year. So I think Boston, with the addition of Porzingis and the guard,
Drew Holiday.
Holiday, I think they've got over the hump. I think Tatum and Brown finally get that championship ring that they've been waiting for. And then Red Auerbach and Bill Russell and all those guys can rest easy.
I think the Celtics took threes on a league-leading 47.1% of their field goal attempts, while the Nuggets were last at 35.2%. And I think this is finally the time that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown outshoot the Nuggets in the finals. And I will semi-agree with your Celtics, but I'm still rooting for the Nuggets all the way, Coach. How many points will the finals MVP score in the 2024 playoffs?
I mean, it depends on how many 6 and 7 and 5 game series there are. I mean, you know, in the championship series, I could see, but I mean, that's in the whole playoffs. Shoot, it depends how many games they play. How do you figure that out? I would say 601.
601, Coach. You're locked in.
601.
Hey, everyone. Coach Mo's bracket is made. Obviously, we're going to put this 601. We're going to put this up on Sports Fluent Media's YouTube page so everyone can see it. But this is the Coach Mo bracket. Coach, I think you nailed it pretty much, except for I think the Nuggets are still going to go back-to-back. But hey, anyways, Coach, thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you back here again in a couple of weeks to talk finals.
I'm going to Caesar's Palace right now, and I'm gonna put a bet down for us. How much you in for 100?
100? Sure, yeah, let's go. Whatever you want, Coach, I'm rocking with you. You're on it. Hey, thank you, Coach Mo, and thank you all for joining us today on the show on iHeartRadio Podcast, and YouTube. If you want a little more sports madness in your life, tune back in on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Subscribe to Coach Mo's show and my show at Showtown Hoops on YouTube. And please rate, comment, and download the show everywhere else. And next week, we'll be back with a lot more sports talk, so stay tuned. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll see you right back here on the Sports Scene with Jesse Ough, presented by First Bet and Sports Fluent Media.